Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody, if you're joining. Great to have you with us. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm meant to be following a script and I can't remember what it is already. Thank you for joining us once again. We are back. The Book Doctor sessions are back after a 2-year gap, and it is delightful to be here. We're so pleased to have you with us. It's felt like a long 2 years. Now, while we're waiting for everyone to arrive, oh look, Anne knows the drill already. Hello, Anne from Wyoming in the USA. That is brilliant. Just so I can check that everything's working, and because it's going to take a couple of minutes for everyone to join, I'm sure. Please, uh, just say a hi. Tell us where you're joining from in the chat. And I can see we've got Margie from Atlanta. Oh gosh, it's all going too fast. Fred from Nova Scotia. I recognize some of these names. Great to have you back with us, everybody. Montana, Dorset. Oh, someone in the UK, Staffordshire, Germany. Dylan from Texas. Amazing. Guys, it is so wonderful to have you all with us. I've seen someone from British Columbia, someone from New Zealand. Hello, Paul in the USA. Yeah, great. I honestly, I could read those for 5 minutes. Lovely to see the reach and where you're all joining from. So thank you for that. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at what I'm meant to be saying at this point. So for those of you joining us for the first time, a huge welcome. We love having a wonderful community of people joining these sessions. Sally and I ran the Book Doctor webinar for a couple of years. We had a gap that went on for a bit too long, and now we're back. And I thought I'd just start off by sharing kind of how we tend to structure these sessions. So if you're here for the first time, just what you can expect, what's coming up. So what I'm going to do first of all is I am going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up at ProWritingAid in the next couple of weeks. So you've got some ideas of some of the other events that you can attend. I will introduce Sally. We'll have a lovely chat with you. We'll all have a lovely chat. We'll have some questions, and we'll answer those questions, and then we'll wrap up in 50 minutes or so, maybe an hour yet. So yeah, lots to cover. Oh, and I'll go through a few housekeeping rules as well. But yeah, again, while we're waiting for any stragglers to join, just a few thoughts and ideas and things about what ProWritingAid's got for you in the next few weeks. And the big news here is that next week is Romance Writers Week. So you may be aware that we run 4 Writers Weeks a year. Next week, to coincide with Valentine's Day, we have Romance Writers Week. Please, if you haven't signed up, please do so. It is a free event. It's 4 days of wonderful sessions. We've got amazing speakers. I should have made a list of some of our speakers beforehand. I didn't do, so I'm sorry about that. But if you go to either our community page on ProWritingAid.com or our landing page for Romance Writers Week, you can find out more information. And I've posted those in chat right now. Like I say, it's free. You don't have to be a paying ProWritingAid user. You could have a free subscription. It's 4 days, so around about 20 events. Those will be author discussions, Q&As, craft sessions, all sorts of bits and pieces. So something for everyone. I really recommend you come along, sign up. And once you have signed up, you'll have access to, I think, all the recordings, if not most of the recordings. I'm sure we've got some people here before that have been on some of our event weeks, and will testify to how much value they are. You can still see people coming in. That's wonderful. Hi, Chris from Scotland. Hi, Helen from Cajun County in Country in Lafayette, Louisiana. Hello from rainy Croydon, just up the road from us. Sally and I are both in Brighton in the UK. Right. We've done with, I've posted the links. I've told you what's coming up. Let's have a quick bit of housekeeping. So, Sally and I love these sessions and love the fact that they're really interactive. Please join in the conversation if you feel like you want to. We often have a really lively back channel going on in the chat. So have your chat open and join in. The only thing I'm going to ask is please keep it respectful, obviously, and on topic. That really helps. If, however, you want to ask a question, if you want to post a question to Sally, and please do, we love those questions, then please post that in Q&A. I can see Rose has already posted a couple there, which is great. But yeah, please post those in Q&A. You can access Q&A from the bottom menu on your screen. If you put your questions in chat, there is a very good chance that I will miss them, forget where they are. So please use the Q&A panel for questions that you'd like to have answered. I can't guarantee we'll answer all of them today, but we'll certainly try. If you don't get your question answered, you are more than welcome to contact us after the event. If you reach out to our customer support team at hello@prowritingaid.com, the questions will come to me. I can ask Sally for her input. So feel free to contact us after the show. And then the final point, this session is for you. Okay, we love running these webinars, but we love it being steered by you, our wonderful guests. So if you have an idea of a topic or something particular that you'd like to see covered in one of these sessions, please let me know. Post it in Q&A would be a great place. So again, I'll probably lose it in chat. Sally and I have a list that we're already working on, but we'd love to get a steer from you. I think that is everything. I think we're ready to begin. So I'm going to take a sip of water and then we'll begin the session. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Wild from ProWritingAid, and I'm delighted to have my old pal, Sally OJ, with me today. I'm going to give you an introduction to Sally. Many of you will have met her before, but some of you won't have done. Let me tell you a little bit about her. So Sally is a literary editor and writer's mentor. She has been the first reader for Sarah Waters on all of her books and continues to work with her. And is also first reader for Viv Albertine on Clothes, Music, Boys, and her second memoir, To Throw Away Unopened. Other published books that Sally's worked on include Night Train to Marrakesh by Dinah Jeffries, Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks, All the Living and the Dead by Hayley Campbell, There's Something I Have to Tell You by Michelle McDonough, and a ton more. I've got to be honest. Just go and take a look at her website, www.sallyoj.com. Sally is a writer, is a mentor for Black girl writers, and was a judge at the Cheshire Novel Prize in 2022 and 2023. She especially loves the process of brainstorming and developing works in progress. Previously, Sally was a journalist and an editor in the music business. She's written and edited scripts for broadcast, entertainment news, album sleeve notes, and features. She's comfortable working in genres as diverse as literary fiction, biography, historical fiction, fantasy, romance, crime, and mystery, as well as non-fiction and converted fan fiction, but not picture books. So, Sally, welcome once again. Great to have you with us. That's quite some resume. How are you doing?
Well, hello. Hello, everyone. I'm doing really, really well. It's so great to be back. We've been looking forward to this so much, haven't we? It's just brilliant.
I'm grinning from ear to ear because I just came to love these sessions. I love the interaction we have with everyone who's joining us today. And I can still see names coming in. I can see lots of people saying hi, Sally, people who haven't seen us for a while. So nice that I get to listen to Sally again from Helen. Lovely.
No, I don't see. I turn this off because
I know you get distracted, don't know.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, and we do keep a copy of it afterwards, though. We do keep, so we can go through the chat. So let's get on with today's session. Tonight is all about murder, specifically murdering your darlings. And we discussed a whole load of topics, which should be the first one that we come back with. The word murder stood out to me immediately, but let's be absolutely clear. What are we talking about when we're talking about murdering your darlings?
Murdering your darlings. It sounds so much better than you've got to make it shorter, doesn't it?
Yes.
The term, a lot of people think, for some reason, if you look online, people say William Faulkner coined this term, but it was actually an English writer who gloried under the name of Sir Arthur Quiller Couch. And he said, you've got to learn to murder your darlings because, cutting out, if you read your book and you think, oh, that's not working, I'll just cut that out. That's not too difficult. It's hard,
Yeah.
It's not too hard. What's hard is losing a character that you really like, is losing a chapter that just gives you such pleasure when you read it. It's losing a whole thread, or just little things that have just, you know, when you read back to yourself, you think, I wrote that. Those are the things, those are your darlings that are hard to cut. And sometimes those are the things that really need to go for various reasons.
Okay, I was going to say why. What are those reasons?
Well,
Why do people
the
have to
most
make those
common
choices?
reasons that people have to get into a bit of slaughter in terms of merging your darlings, it's a bit different from, we're going to talk about just how to make your book shorter, how to cut your book anyway, but merging your darlings often comes because when you start to write your book, people start to write their book in their head, usually. And they'll be sitting on a bus or sitting on a train or driving or whatever. And often a book will start with one particular character or scene. Even I know an author who starts with a scene always, and it can be right in the middle of the book. It's not the start of the book. And the rest of the book sort of grows out from
Mm.
these flashpoints, if you like. What often happens is 2 years later, when you've got your finished book, Greg, who started it all, isn't actually really necessary anymore. You
Yeah.
know, the whole book's grown up in a different way. Or that fantastic scene in the railway station, or that amazing bit with the dog and the birthday cake. Actually, they sort of sit on top of the plot instead of being part of its warp and weft. And that's when you have to go. Or there could be a very long conversation that just needs to be cut, or things like this. We'll go into more detail.
And go back to that why, Sal. So what are the kind of, what's the risk if you don't do this? What's the risk when you try and get when you take your book to an agent or a
So
publisher?
again, good question. Again, we're talking about two slightly different things here. We're talking about just making your book shorter.
Hmm.
That's one thing. And we're talking about merging your darlings.
Hmm.
If we put them all together into one big necessity, what you have to make sure is that your book is as sleek and neat and tight and shiny as it can be. So what you really want to do is make sure that the plot is as focused and as sharp as it can be. So you don't want any long information dumps, you don't want any exposition, you don't want any over explaining. You don't want too much repetition. And that's, very often it's hard for an author to see when they've said something and then they've said it again and
Yeah.
they've said it again, because it comes from different perspectives perhaps, or at different moments. But, if something is all about when the elephant, ate the canary, they would never do that. They're vegetarians. But, then you'll have it from several people's perspective, and actually you don't, it just gets flabby. Things just get
Yeah.
flabby. And you don't want a flabby book.
But
But
I'm assuming, yeah, so go on. I was going to say, I'm
uh,
assuming that can be quite difficult to self-edit, to see in your own writing sometimes.
yeah, it can be, because you know why you've repeated it. And,
Yeah.
and so it is quite difficult. And this, coming back again, just going a bit off topic, but it's always on topic, is always get your book edited before you submit it. Always, always, always. It's always worth it.
Okay. So
Always.
that's before you try and get an agent, before you
Yeah, yeah,
any stage.
yeah.
Yeah.
In
And
terms, yeah.
I was just going to talk about genres. Is this an approach you have to take across all genres?
Well, that's another another very good question, Tom. Um, yes and no. There's a magic number which all of you here will probably be aware of, which is 100,000 words. And as new authors, you just can't go over 100,000 words. And in fact, as new authors, I would urge you to go down to 80, 85 if possible.
Right.
But do not go over 100,000. Now, there are many reasons for this, but they're mostly practical. And I'll talk about that in a minute, just to answer your genre question. We all know that there are certain genres where we expect a great big hefty doorstop of a book, historical, fantasy, a certain kind of thriller. Now, a lot of people want a nice tight thriller, but certain kinds of thriller. But with a new author, agents and publishers are much less likely to risk that.
Right.
And there are two reasons for this. One reason is possibly true, which is they worry that readers will think, well, this is a very big book and I don't know who this person is. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy their book.
Yeah.
And I've got to take one big book on holiday with me. So it's probably not going to be this one. It's probably going to be the author that I know. I'm not convinced by that, but that's certainly how people think. Then there's a much, much more practical reason. And this is true. It's the fact that if a publisher is going to spend that much money on paper and ink and cover design and all the hoopla that goes with a book, they want to be sure
That's
that they're not going to lose their money. They don't want to pulp lots of huge books. They'd much rather take a chance with a smaller book than they would with a huge, great big one. And it's also about selling into territories. Territories are going to go, that's too big for the same reason.
so by territories, you mean?
Foreign territories. So
Yeah.
like selling to Australia, well, the
Yeah.
whole world, really.
Yeah.
Non-English speaking. And, then it's about translation as well. So it is a very hard-nosed reason that they don't like taking bigger books than that. But it's also just, if we're going to take a punt on you, let's start slowly. Let's sort of take it
Yes.
easy. As you said, some genres will get away with it, but even if I get an historical novel that long, I will encourage people, if they're first-time authors, to try and shave a bit. And you can always shave, you really can.
Yeah, and so that was my next question, really, about your experience as as an editor and a mentor. Is this a difficult conversation to have? Is it something that people tend to be aware of? How does it go for you when you're working with some of the writers you work with?
It mostly goes with people saying, you cut it for me.
Right.
But the thing is, sometimes I can say, okay, seeing as you mention it, I've got no idea why chapter 14 is there.
Yeah.
Really, I just don't know why it's there. And then we'll talk about it. What often happens is they say, you're kidding, chapter 14 is really important. It's blah, blah, blah. And actually, they just need to work a bit on chapter 14. But it's not easy for me to do the cutting because I don't know that, you see. I don't know what they've just told me. So I would say, I'll just get rid of this. It's completely, there's no reason for it to be there. Sometimes I will highlight bits of the book in a certain color. Maybe you could cut here, maybe you could cut there. That I'd much rather the authors learnt how to spot what needs to go.
Yeah.
So how to be brave and do it themselves, because remember, it's these days nothing disappears. Put a folder on your desktop called to be used later.
Yes. Okay.
Everything that it breaks your heart, you're not exactly murdering your darlings. You're
Put
just
them in cold storage.
in an oubliette, until you come back to them later. So so nothing has to completely disappear. But I
Yeah.
think, and if and I've had people say to me, I took out chapter 14 and I hated it and I put it back in. Okay.
Yes.
It's your book, ultimately. It's your book. And that sounds a bit sarcastic. I don't mean it sarcastically. It is your book. So,
But the interesting point. Sorry, Sal, I'm going to interrupt here very briefly because I think you brought up an interesting point, which was to me sounded like you were saying, when you were describing a situation where you don't know the book in the same way the author read it, but you're looking at something through the eyes of the reader, aren't you?
yeah,
You're looking at kind of readability, page turnability from the reader's perspective.
absolutely. And that is what, as you mentioned, page turnability, that's what you're looking for. Pacing is a huge reason to cut. If anyone is telling you the pacing's in trouble, you need to cut. If anyone's telling you that the tension is flagging, you need to cut. If anyone's telling you that, there's too much, I've said repetition or
Yes.
explanation, you need to cut. And it's cutting in big ways, which is a bit easier than cutting in small ways, but actually you can lose a lot if you cut in small ways. And you, while you're doing that, you're making the book punchier, tighter, more
And
fun to read.
this is no small undertaking, is it? Because you could be, yes, you could take out a chapter, but you could also, like you say, be taking out a character. So this could require you to really meticulously go through the whole manuscript and
Yeah.
remove dialogue, remove parts related to a specific
Mm.
character.
Yeah. And that's I try and encourage people to see that as an exciting challenge. But and you know what it is? You know, I have twice in my career, my 8,000-year career, I have said to people, I think you need to lose him.
Yeah.
Both male characters, just coincident. I think you need to lose him. I I I don't know what your idea with him was, but he has to go.
Mm.
And one of them said to me, yeah, I know. I thought you might say that. And seemed quite happy to go off and deal with it. And one of them was not at all happy. And we talked about it a lot. And actually, though, when he came back, having done it, he was much happier with the book. And I'll tell you for why.
Mm.
Um, People who've been here before will have seen me talk about the crystal glass. So just
Yes.
indulge me, um, um, those of you who've heard me say it before. If you've got a lovely crystal glass and you ping it, makes that lovely clear sound. And I say to people, if I give you advice and you're not hearing that lovely ping, if you're hearing this, don't do it. Okay. Now it's the same for writers when they're doing their own work. They'll get to a bit in their manuscript, and every time they get there, they hear this, but they think, no one will notice. I'll just go on to the next good bit. You know, as authors, you know, I'm telling you now, there's not one of you here that doesn't know when something in your book isn't working or isn't quite right.
Yeah.
What you might not know is how to fix it, but you do know when it's not working properly, and that will help you tremendously.
Yeah. And yeah, you've mentioned that before, and I think that's a good kind of thing to bear in mind. I'm interested to know from people who are on the webinar tonight what experiences you've had at going through this process of murdering your darlings, or I can't remember, someone did mention further up what the kind of the US equivalent is, what you often call this. Someone else, oh, kill your darlings. And then we got the compromise of exterminate your darlings for the Doctor
That's
Who
if you're a
fans,
Dalek.
which I think is pretty, yeah, brilliant. But yeah, what are your experiences? You know, have you had that moment after doing it where yes, you sit back and think, actually, yeah, hard work, but boy, was that worth it? Um,
Let's
Sam,
talk a bit about how to do it.
yes, let's
And
do that.
and what I'm hoping, Tom, is that you're going to tell me what I told you the other day, because you know, this always happens in these things. I get so excited and I think, what did I say? Tom and I always have these little chats about the sessions, and it's really good fun. And but what tends to happen is we laugh a lot and then tell each other stories about our children. So sometimes um, uh, the cold hard facts get a bit lost. Remind me, and then I'll be off.
Okay, I'm going to remind you. I'm first of all going to mention Patricia's comment.
Yeah.
I exterminated my entire epilogue. Oh, hang on, I've
Oh
lost
yeah.
the comment. Reduced word count by 3,000 words. So liberating.
And
Um,
that's
and
fantastic, Patricia. That's amazing. And it is liberating. This is the thing. It's very, very difficult to sort of get your head round often. But I've never ever worked with anyone who said, I hate it now. Well,
yeah,
apart from that
yeah,
one person who did lose something and then put it back again. But mostly people just say, wow, it's so
yeah.
much better. It just works so much better.
Kendra makes an interesting point. It takes warming up to, but the polished piece makes it worth the effort. Now,
Mm,
I haven't done it, but I can totally imagine that. It's kind of almost getting your eye into it, right? And getting,
yeah,
yeah. And then I think Joe also mentioned a really good comment. Put them in a to be used later file. They're never totally gone. So yeah, some
exactly.
great ideas and
I
conversations
think
there.
you'll find I also suggested that.
You did, Sal. Yes, exactly that.
I used the word oubliette, which is perhaps not the most easy to follow. Yes, put them in a file. Nothing goes. You can
Yeah.
use them later.
I should add, Joe, who made that comment, did say just as you said. So
Oh, I'm
she,
so
yeah.
sorry.
Right. Let's get back to the how. So one of the things I think you talked about, Sal, was again that putting yourself in that kind of reader-centric mode. So why am I telling the reader this? Why is
That's
this
right.
bit important? Why is it relevant to the story?
It's terribly important. I mean, this is crucial with any part of writing a book is to think of your reader.
Yeah.
Think of your reader. So if you're getting that clang, or if you're talking with your editor about needing to cut, if I say to you, look, the first third of the book just isn't, it's just not, I can see there's stuff there that's great,
Yeah.
but it's just not working. Now take, for example, this section here. What are you telling us with that? And often if an author starts to think, well, what am I? What am I saying with this? What am I saying with this chapter? So if you know you've got to cut, try and get 100,000 words down to 90 or 85. If you go through each chapter, literally go through each chapter and think, okay, why did I have that? What am I saying with that? Do I need to say that? Oh, crikey, I've already said that twice. Oh, am I being clear? Is this a bit
Yeah.
waffly? Is this, and what you need to avoid is sort of sprawling, which a
Yes.
lot of people do. They don't realize they do it until they look for it. So the story, Joe the elephant keeper, who I believe you mentioned.
I've missed these, Sal. I've really missed these.
Good old Joe. Joe the elephant keeper. The story is about Joe and his the thing that happens at the circus. But suddenly we find Joe goes off to visit his aunt in Rill, and what the writer thinks they're doing, and in fact are doing, is they're giving us context for Joe. They're giving us um, they're
Yeah.
giving us background for Joe. But what I, as a reader, want is the plot to keep going like this. And if we've suddenly gone off on 3 chapters to Rill,
Yeah.
lovely though it is,
Yeah.
if it's not keeping the plot going, if it's just giving us
Pacing.
backstory, if it's not keeping the page turn ability, even if his auntie's lovely, I'm sort of like, oh, come on, let's get back to the story.
Yeah.
The other thing is going down kind of, so background is important, but it's much better if you put it in the warp and weft of the story than sort of take it out of context and put it over there.
Yes.
Keep things going. Every page of your book has to keep the plot moving. Everything has to keep moving. The other thing that people do inadvertently is sort of go down cul-de-sacs, if you like. And they'll be telling us, so, Joe there and the elephant, and it's all great, but then there's also a camel at the circus, and we're suddenly sort of talking quite a lot about this camel, and we're not sure why, and we trust. We think, I'm going to read on, and this is
Yeah.
going to become completely clear. The camel is going to feature big time. No, it doesn't. Suddenly we're back with Joe and the elephants and whatever the main plot is, and we're not really sure why we went down that little cul-de-sac with the camel, sort of sweet though the camel is. So what you've got to think of your plot not as a straight line. Nobody wants a linear plot, and this is why people put in these cul-de-sacs and stuff, because they think, no, I can't just have my plot going like that. Then that's very true. You want your plot to be doing this, and well, actually you want your plot to be doing this, as we all know, but you want all sorts of crunchy, exciting, sinewy, chewy bits, but it's got to keep moving. It's got to keep moving forward. If the camel isn't keeping the plot moving forward, the camel has to go. You
Yeah.
have to murder that camel or put it in your to be used later folder, if you prefer. So these are the principal question to ask yourself is it helping the plot? Is it moving the plot forward?
Yep.
And that should help you tremendously. The other thing is in the smaller ways is often people, it's, you know, it's called exposition. It's people telling each other things that the reader already knows, or repeating things that the reader already knows.
Yeah, I was going to say
Sometimes,
repetition.
yeah, it's a slightly different kind of repetition. So repetition, big no-no, but that's, you possibly need someone else to point that out to you.
Right.
But if people use exposition because they want, for two reasons. One is because they want to get some facts across to the reader, and they think if I've got Joe telling his elephant while they're having a drink together one evening about this, then the reader will know it. But what they have to remember is that the elephant already knows this. They have a drink every night. The elephant was there when it happened. So the only reason you're telling us this is so the reader can find out. And that's no good. That's exposition. It's got to be, again, the warp and weft. It's got to be part of the plot. You can't just tell us stuff's happening. You know,
Yeah.
I always give this very corny example. I just make this up, obviously. Hi, Joe, again. You know, you're my brother-in-law. We had a bit of a bumpy start when you married my sister, but we get on well now. How are you? You know, that's the biggest kind of exposition you can have.
Yeah.
The other reason people do it is that they want to, they don't realize they're doing it. So we see the nasty incident with the elephant and the policeman, and we've read that. You've told us that. We've seen it. But then Joe will go to his friend Susie at the circus and say, God, this thing just happened. And he
Yeah.
doesn't say this thing just happened with the elephant and the policeman. He says, we were going along the main road, and then this policeman, he'll basically tell it all over again. This happens a surprising amount in books.
Right.
All of that can go. Be terribly careful. If the audience already knows it, as soon as they start reading it again, and again, writers do this for a very good reason. They want to put some, you know, they want to show us the relationship between Joe and Susie, and he's gone to her and he's going to tell her. But it's quite acceptable for him to say, you're not going to believe what just happened. That's
So
what he has to say.
so this is really interesting, and it reminds me of something we were talking about, and it's something that I can't see the person's full name. All I can see is Wen. So it could be Wendy, it could be Wendell. But you said trust that your reader gets it, that trust in your reader.
That's right.
Yeah. So you trust that they, you know, if you got it first time, they will have got it first
Yeah,
time. I
that's
think.
right. I did say that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Good for me. It's very, very important. People over explain. And this is another really common thing. Think of yourself as the reader, as Tom just said. It's slightly circular. We're doing exactly that.
Yeah.
I said it to Tom, and then Tom said it back to me, and now I'm saying it to
You
you.
said it all first,
Yeah,
Sal. I just gave it
all
back
of
to you.
it, everything.
Yeah.
That if you as a reader will get it, then your reader will probably get it. You don't need to
Yeah.
spell things out for people. And it's actually much more fun if
Yeah.
the reader thinks, oh, I know what happened there. I saw that coming. Or, oh, that's, you know, gentle little brushstrokes. Readers love that. You as readers love that, right? You really enjoy that when things are done without, you know, being hammered home. You don't like that.
Absolutely.
You think, does this guy think I'm an idiot?
Yeah.
So
I measure that book by the kind of the sense of kind of pacing that I get from it. It's kind of, yeah, it's very important. I'm just going to say thank you to everybody that's contributing to chat, because there is so many conversations there going on. I can see lots of questions, but also scenarios being posted there that people are helping out with, and that's lovely to see. It's obviously a topic that, you know, some people have gotten to grips with, some people are still questioning and struggling with. There's some really, really interesting advice in there, so thank you to everybody who's contributing to that.
that's brilliant.
Don't forget to keep your questions coming in. We'll start going through those in a second.
Yeah, please do ask me, because you know this is a big topic, and I can say all the things I've just said, but you know, but please ask me specifically, and that might help us throw light onto other aspects of this.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So we've talked a lot about or a little bit about the how, about the crystal quality,
Mhm.
about the ways. So, well, should we touch on the ways to do it? Because you can do it yourself, but you could, you know, you've obviously got your editor there as well to do this for you. So the editing is an important part of this.
I think don't expect your editor to literally cut for you. Now, when you get an agent, should you get an agent, oh boy, they're going to want to cut for you. They're going to take their filleting knife to your book. When you get a publisher, they're going to do the same. And in a way, it's good because they don't care. They just want the book to be viable. So they don't care. They'll cut the elephant if they have to, if they think they have to. In a way, it's quite good because they know the market. They know that they're quite cold-blooded in the way they approach these things. What's important is often authors are so thrilled to have an agent, so thrilled, and quite rightly, that they'll just say yes to anything an agent says. Now, we'll come back to chapter 14, which wasn't explaining something very well, but it was important. If your agent says to you, and I've cut chapter 14, you've got to say, no, 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 don't cut that. Something really important that happens there. Let me talk to you about why I've got that there, and then I'll rewrite it. So do fight your corner. Don't just accept
Yeah.
everything an agent says to you. And it goes for publishers as well. Publishers will and agents actually will rewrite things. You've got to fight your corner. Very important. But when it comes to cutting, they are not shy. In fact, they're bloodthirsty. In fact, they're homicidal. So, you know, the leaner and meaner you can get it before you give it to an agent, the better. Once I suggested to an author that they leave something in so that the agent could cut it, and it was very risky, and I should not have done it, and I won't do it again ever. But it worked.
Yeah.
They did cut it, and it needed to go.
I'm just going to jump in at this point, because I can see some things, conversations in chat, and say, look, one of the things we talk about writing as a craft, and the idea is that we're giving advice and help, but obviously, it is up to you how you interpret that, and you know, it can be difficult to get the right balance. So, yeah, I'm hoping what you're hearing tonight is useful and helpful, but it's important, you know, to I suppose to interpret this and the advice and how you apply that to your writing in your own way. And as with all things, right, so it's a balance, right?
It is a balance, and I think if you're working with an editor, and please do work with an editor, it's not even beta readers. It's finding an editor that you trust, and it's like finding a therapist. You know, it's or a lover. It's a very specific relationship.
Yeah.
But if you find an editor that you trust and they tell you that you have to cut and they just say, well, it's just too long, you know, you can talk through with them
Yeah.
ways to do it. But it's mostly in your hands because it's mostly you know what's dead weight, dead wood. You know what's dead wood and what can go. Just keep asking yourself, what am I telling the reader with this? How is this making the plot move forward? How is this informing the plot? And actually, this chapter is mostly a very long conversation. I could lose nearly all of it.
Yeah. So let's dive into some questions because I'm conscious of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start right at the very top. Connie, you asked about covering anything on setting scenes. We're not doing that today, but that's a great idea for a future one. So thanks for that. So there's been a few questions, and I think the question's been posted a few times asking about ProWritingAid. And before I answer this, I'm going to link back to something said in chat, which is don't forget, I mean, obviously, I'm biased. I love that you're using ProWritingAid. It is a tool in your arsenal, as is Scrivener. There's been some great, I think Frederick mentioned how he uses Scrivener in a brilliant suggestion there. They're tools, okay? They are to be used to help you get to your finished product. They help save you some money. They help do some of the work for you. But don't always assume that everything ProWritingAid tells you is what you absolutely have to do. That's not the case. Okay, you are in charge. Now, Mark, you asked about attending here and asked about the critique report. The critique report suggesting that you need to reduce backstory, but then with the same text, the pacing report says, you know, it's slow pacing of paragraphs. Which do you trust? I mean, I think again, this is something to pick up on another session, but in brief, I think backstory and pacing, two slightly different things. So and don't forget, I'm not making excuses, but ProWritingAid is only able, you know, it's analyzing what it sees in front of it. So feel free to ignore what ProWritingAid is telling you, is what I'm saying, if you don't feel it's right advice for your particular story, your genre, whatever it is. I hope that helps. I know it probably sounds like a bit of a cop out to some people, but I hope that helps. Right. How do
Tom,
you,
I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt. You know how sometimes this happens where I just see one thing flash up, nothing else. I didn't get to read it properly, so I may have misunderstood it. But I think something just flashed up where somebody said, why do publishers and agents expect writers to go out and pay for editors themselves? They don't. Writers, agents and publishers feel confident that they can fix things. But I am telling you, as a sort of dispassionate person, because it's not going to be necessarily me you come to, just go to someone, you are going to save yourself. It could be the difference between an agent picking up a book or not. It's that simple.
Yeah.
But it also will improve. Having an editor who knows what they're doing will improve your book tremendously. Now, if that wasn't what that person said, and I just saw it for a nanosecond,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's
It's a
not
good,
an expectation from agents and publishers.
yes.
In fact, they don't like it very much
I think,
sometimes. If you
again, this,
say, but my editor said, they don't like that very much. I'm not surprisingly. So
yeah.
just our little secret.
Kathleen, you mentioned PWA and Scrivener are artist brushes. They are not the artist hands or eyes. Absolutely right. Bill, you ask if we're going to London Book Fair. I will be there. We don't think we'll have a stand, but I will be wandering around with a t-shirt on at some point. I'll give you more details if we have a stand. Back to questions. So I don't know your name. Anonymous asks, is the word count standard also true for indie written books? Now, indie is slightly different because obviously, you know, you're not, you know, everything's not dependent on you getting a publishing deal, right? So you could go over that 100,000 word count, but
You know, I encourage you not to,
yeah,
because you're going to have a very, very, you're going to have a book that you might want to cut into 3 at that point. I
yeah,
don't know if any of you remember the Forsyte saga, which is whatever it is, 6 books, this big, and it is a saga. So that word count is just think of yourself as a reader.
yeah,
And I mean, there's just the literal difficulty of reading a book that's much bigger than that. I don't mean the difficulty of keeping track of everything. That's one thing. I don't mean the difficulty of keeping track of the plot and the characters and all of that. That's one thing. But just the difficulty of sitting with a book that big and reading it. It's not easy. It isn't
yeah.
really. People say, "Oh, Kindle," but don't write a very, very long book. There's I can't think of a good reason to do it. If you've
Sal,
got that much to say, chop it up into 2 books.
question from Cliff. How do you know when you've removed enough?
That's a very good question. I think you start hearing that ting when you
Yeah,
know you've removed enough. You will go, this is what I get. I get authors coming back to me and saying, it's like somebody said today, it's just this liberating feeling. You think, oh, this is so much better. It's paced here, it's working, it's cracking along. I mean, if you've got beta readers, they might tell you that.
yeah.
But 70% of that is that little voice in the back of your head going, this is not right, it's not right yet. And then you cut and you think, oh, Okay, now it's cooking, now it's working. I think if you get a book down to 80, 85, if there's still extraneous stuff in there, then that's a sort of different question, really.
Yeah.
It's a different issue.
So I love the conversation in the chat because there are some great examples of where PWA gets it wrong. Absolutely, right. It apparently, Amber, your story is so funny. The sentence the sentence was the word chow, and it said you were writing at college age level. Like I said, we do our best to make sure it's the models and everything else that's working in the background are producing useful advice, but sometimes it will get it wrong, and I
Okay,
apologize for that.
I've just seen, I don't know why this is happening.
I think we've got a slight glitch, Sal, because some of the other
Okay,
people in chat are saying they're
somebody
seeing.
mentioning J.K. Rowling, and I couldn't see who the other, they just come up like this. J.K. Rowling is not a first-time author. J.K. Rowling is one of the most successful authors ever. She can write books that are the size of a small pony if she wants to, and they will get published and they will sell. The publishers know that. I'm talking about first-time authors here. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Hilary Mantel can write, well, not anymore, sadly, but can write books as long as she wants. Sarah Waters can write books as long as she wants. You know, all of them, all of it, your big, but first time authors is what I'm talking about. You guys who haven't been published yet, to
I'm going to
help you
remember
get
that.
published.
I'm going to remember that quote. J.K. Rowling can write a small pony. Um,
She can. She could do what she likes.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry, right. Jonathan, how do you stop an editor from cutting out things that later have a strong relevance in advance of them doing it? Would
So this is oh
would
sorry,
having a
carry on.
synopsis save everyone time and effort?
Well, synopsi. It's interesting because I don't read them until I've read the book, and I think agents don't either,
Mm,
or at least until they've read the 3 chapters because it can spoil things. Um, so sort of yes, but sort of no. It synopsis can look great. It's the book that's got to work. And that's I've been taken in, I've been fooled by that before by reading a good synopsis and thinking, oh, that looks fantastic. And then the book's rubbish. So no, it doesn't always work like that. What was the beginning of that question? Sorry.
I've forgotten. And I've deleted it. Hang on, answered. Let me have a quick look. So the question was, oh, how do you stop an editor from cutting out things that later have a
Right.
strong
So
relevance?
if your editor is someone like me that you're working with, it's your call.
Yeah,
Absolutely your call. All I can it's I can give you my opinion. It's an informed opinion. I know what I'm talking about. But if it doesn't feel right to you, don't do it. I say that to every single
yeah,
author I work with. I can tell you what I think. I can tell you that this is the whole book will fail if you don't lose the camel. And but if you think, no, that doesn't sound right to me, I want that camel, then keep the camel. It's really important. When it comes to working with an agent or indeed a publisher, and they're very emphatic about what they want to go, then you have to really make your case for
yeah.
what you want to stay. And you won't always win, but mostly you actually will if you remain calm and measured and say, look, this is why this is there. Let's
So
think about it. Yeah.
can we address something that's come up in a few questions and chat just recently? I can see Jonathan, who just asked that question, also commented that he was told 120K max for science fiction. And it's, but the point is that a few people have said that it seems these word counts are coming down. A couple of other people have said they used to be 100 to 120. Some agents now tell them 80 to 85. I think Joe mentioned that. And you mentioned something recently that, yeah, times are changing, right? So actually, those
Yeah.
word counts are getting lower.
Everything's changing at the moment. Publishing's going through one of its weird panics, which happens every now and then. And we all know why. It's because of TikTok this time. Um, and why something like TikTok is driving the market, I do not know. And it's because of these books that just fly off the shelves, like Richard Osman over here. I don't know if he's popular in the States. Cozy crime, cozy noir, cozy this, that, and the other, you know, and publishers are scared.
Yeah.
Why they're scared, I don't know. There are things, historical's going through terrible trouble at the moment. People are saying, I'm not going to take historical unless it's got a great hook. But if any genre sells by the bucket load, it's historical. So
Yeah.
you just can't tell. There are these weird, ups and downs in publishing, in trends and so on. It's disappointing because there are books that authors that I've worked with whose books would have been picked up like that 5 years ago, and they can't get agents now.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it,
And to reiterate a point you made, Sal, in fact, someone that works with you, I can only see her name or his name is Bukuno. Yes, that's true. Sally works with me and asks me these questions.
Canola,
And sometimes I agree, and sometimes I tell her that I think it would make sense later on. So there we go.
yeah,
Fight your
she's a
corner.
joy to work with.
There we go. Lovely.
Absolute joy to work with.
Okay, we've got so many questions to get through and so little time. Let's keep going. Peggy asked about recapping. I see a fair amount of recapping in mystery stories, and it appears to be acceptable, stroke standard.
I think if there's recapping, every time there's something added, there'll be a little clue or there'll be something in there that's added.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. I can't say, but if it's gone through the whole process, if things are being reiterated, there's probably because they've dropped a little extra thing in there for you.
Yeah.
That's possibly why. Or it's being, it's an unreliable narrator and it's being told slightly differently, or, there could be all sorts of reasons.
Someone else, and George asked about sci-fi and information dumps. So are info dumps in sci-fi novels okay to keep? My sci-fi novel is very heavy science and not an easy thing to just add bits here and there.
Well, I can't do sci-fi, so it's
Mm.
one of the very few genres I can't do. Um, I don't know what science fiction readers want. Do they want a huge amount of technical
I
information?
think that's the point, isn't it? Right? This is
Yeah.
again coming back
It's
to
like
the point.
all genres have their own tropes.
Yes,
So
yes,
if you're a sci-fi reader and you know that people love, that's what they've come for. In fact, they've come for the technical stuff, then go for it. But even then, you keep it lean and mean, don't the got to keep things chugging along. You've got to keep the page turning. So don't if
yeah.
you can look at that section and see if you can cut it, or those sections, and see, do I need to say all of that? Do I need to say just some of it? Can I drip it out through the story? That's a good way.
Alice asks an interesting question. Have you ever come across a time where instead of cutting a character, you combine two characters? I'm not sure when to cut or when to combine.
I have not, but I know it is done, and I know it can be done very, very successfully. I would love to work on a book like that. That would be such fun. Um, I I think that's an extremely creative answer to an issue. If you can do it, it's most likely to. Oh, I have suggested it once, but then I don't know if they did it. Two very similar characters I suggested combined. God, that was years ago. But I don't know if they did or not. But no, that's a very, very creative. See,
There's
that's part of this, is being creative. Just
yes.
be creative. It's a problem, you've got to solve it.
Unless I wonder if anyone's done that, if anyone's combined characters, let's see in chat. It'd be lovely to, it'd be great to know. I appreciate we're getting close to the hour. I know that some people may have to leave. We will be sending out the recording of this. It should be available on YouTube, I'm hoping as well. So yeah, thanks for joining. We're still going to keep going for a few minutes yet, so stay with us if you can. Lots of questions about finding an editor, best way to find an editor to help do this stuff with you.
Um,
Do you
there,
want to comment on
I
that,
will
Phil?
try and answer that, and I always forget the name of the. So, hold on. In this country, I say CIEP accredited copy editors and editors, but there are editing directories, and if you can look in the writer and artist yearbook, all these kind of things. you want people who are accredited usually. I say that and I'm not. But and another great way to find a good editor is word of mouth. So if you belong to a writing group, or if you belong to a writing
Yeah.
group on Facebook or on Twitter, or if you put on Twitter or whatever it's called now, or something like that, can anyone recommend me a good editor? It's the name. It's like when you ask for a plumber, you know, if the same name keeps coming up, go with
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely. And in fact, Frank, you mentioned Reedsy, great partners of ours. We work with Reedsy
Reedsy,
quite a lot. They're
absolutely.
really good.
TLC, Jericho Writers, they'll all give good advice on these kind of stuff. Yeah.
The other thing to do is it's ask. And so if you're not a member of the Pro Writing Aid community, join the community. Like I said, it doesn't cost anything. And ask the question there. I'm sure you will get people giving you suggestions for people
Absolutely.
you can use. All right. So where were we? Yes, lots of finding editor. Sorry. Would you say that Murdering Your Darlings might not have to be so strictly enforced in literary fiction as opposed to action or genre novels?
Even more so probably in literary, because
Right.
it's very easy to get tangled up in a literary plot. And that, I mean, that's a huge generalization. But simple answer is yes. Also in literary. Yeah.
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 Okay. Would a developmental content editor or content editor help with cutting?
Yes, if you ask them to. Yeah. That all that what's really important is that you only do what feels comfortable to you. So there, you know, it's if you've got a particular relationship with an editor, you can have conversations and you can knock things back and forth, you know, but absolutely, if you go with a copy editor and say to them, could you look out for, do you think this needs cutting? Could you suggest places? Don't ask them to do it. That way lies madness for both of you. But if you want advice on it, absolutely ask. What's quite interesting is you may disagree with them, but that might bring stuff up. Oh, you might not, of course. But you know, if you, I find with authors, if they emphatically say no to something, that often kicks a door open, and they think, oh, but on the other hand,
Yeah.
so that, you know, that's I spend a lot of time with people emphatically saying no to me, but then they say, oh, but wait, that's just made me think. So yeah.
So the conversation is a good thing there, right? It's kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a two-way relationship.
absolutely.
Okay, we're going to try and fit in a couple more. So Deb asks about flashbacks. I'm assuming she means whether you can include those, or whether they are deemed as kind of
Of
repetitive
course
or
you can. Flashbacks, subplots,
yeah,
all of that, as long as they keep adding to the plot.
yeah,
So if it's just there to show us that you've got, what are you giving us with that flashback? How is the flashback moving the plot forward? See what I did there? I'm hilarious. So that's the thing that you really have to just think about. Flashbacks are great
yeah.
and used in the right place and everything, but they've got to be relevant. It's got to be relevant. It can't just be beautiful padding. That's what you have to look out for. You don't
Yeah.
want beautiful padding.
I think we're going to have to finish on the last question. It's one from Susan. She says she's got numerous characters that I'm bringing to light as important factors to my novel, and I believe their backstories are important. To know how much backstory to write without taking all of it out has been something I'm dealing with. When murdering my darling, I don't want to over describe their backstories. I just don't know what's too much backstory.
So the thing to it's really to do it the other way around. Before you start writing, you do a
Love that advice.
really thorough character notes for each character. You know, pages,
Yeah,
everything. Are they allergic to dogs? What's their favorite color? When's their birthday? Do they like spaghetti? Just anything you can think of, chuck it all in. Now that is not all going to go into your book. That's not possible, but it will. As I always say to people, it will all go into your book because you will know that person so well by the time it comes to do it. So is it relevant that you need to tell us that they don't like spaghetti? Will it impact? Because then you come to this other thing called Chekhov's gun, which is, you know, you tell us something and the
oh,
reader thinks, oh, this
all
means
good.
something. They're going to choke on spaghetti at some point. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. You can drop it. It doesn't matter.
That reminds me, we should do that session as the session on Chekhov's gun again.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you mentioned spaghetti, and I don't know, is the canary eating the spaghetti or is the elephant eating the spaghetti?
Well, that's what we have to, if it's Chekhov's gun, neither of them are. That's the point.
And I think with that, we're going to have to draw it to a conclusion because we're up to the hour mark, and I have still got questions. I'm so sorry we haven't been able to answer them all today. Thank you so much for joining. Sal, anything you want to end with? Any parting words?
My parting words are, I hope in practical terms that this was helpful. And it's usually something that I talk with an author specifically about their manuscript. So to generalize, it's actually quite hard. I've given all the generalizations that I can. So do send in any questions that, that Tom and I can answer. And, all we want to do is help. So that's
And
it.
come back again next month. We will, like I
Yeah.
said, our intention is to run this as a monthly event. So we will see you then. In the meantime, enjoy Romance Writers Week. Sign up for the community. Like Sally said, keep coming with your questions. I'm on email every day. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've had record-breaking numbers, and I can't tell you how much that means to us. Thank you for everybody that's contributed to the chat. Really lively discussion. Thank you to everybody that's contributed questions. I'm really sorry I haven't been able to answer all of them. And we will see you all again soon. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.